Hey everybody, welcome to Fab Fit Friday. This is an exciting day because we are going to be sewing together our layered, cropped layering tee. And I've been playing around with constructing sleeves, so I'm going to show you that in a couple minutes. I'm just going to wait and see if anybody joins me today. So far it's just me and me. And my daughter Anna's here in the peanut gallery. All right, so we've been working on hacking the tee from the T twin set, and if you remember from last week, we created a sleeve that has some windows going down, like the center of the sleeve is a two-piece sleeve, and I've actually constructed one of the sleeves almost, so I'll show you that, and then I'll show you all the things I've thought about in terms of how to put it together. Hi, Diane. Diane, it's just me and you. I was talking to myself a minute ago. Well, and Anna's here with me. So thank you for coming, because otherwise I would be talking to myself. Oh, Janie's here too. Yay! Hi, ladies. Welcome. I'm really having a wonderful day. Normally I go hiking by myself, which I love. But on Wednesday, I met this woman who wanted to learn some of the other trails that she hasn't been on. So I met her this morning and we did a long 6-mile hike, and it was very nice to get to know her. So now I have a new hiking friend. Hi, Diane. Oh, it's Diane, and Janie. Welcome. All right, so I did the hike. Then this evening, I'm meeting my sister and her husband, and my daughter and I are all going for a little light dinner at a brewery before we go to Abby's volleyball game at Trinity College. I'm super excited about that too. So as soon as I get off today from making this crop layering tee, I'm going to be making a couple more hats for my sister and Brian to wear at the game. So I'm having a lot of fun with my hat hoop. If anybody has a hat hoop and they're watching this, Sunday I am doing a quick start sort of embroidery 101 for the hat hoop. So I will show you how to set it up and how to embroider a design on a baseball hat on Sunday. So that's what's coming up this weekend. And I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to switch my view here, and you can see I have constructed one of my sleeves for the layering tee. It's not completely finished yet because I have to decide how I'm going to top stitch the facing down. But what I want to say is I did some testing in terms of the best way to sew the facing onto this, scalloped edge here and turn it to the right side. So if I turn it over, you can see that one side I actually understitched and one side I didn't. And my understitching isn't like really perfectly straight and accurate here, but I'm going to zoom in so you can see it. And what I want to show you here is I actually think I like the way the understitched side lays versus the understitched side. I think understitching a knit in this situation maybe distorted the shape a little bit. So I think we're going to go with no understitching here. So that's how the detail in the statement sleeve looks, and this is the wrong side. Hi Judy, welcome. It's like all my favorite ladies are here. Thank you guys for joining me. Okay, so here's another thought. Here's something else to think about. You could actually put the facing on the wrong side and flip it to the right side, and you could use a contrasting fabric and you'd have a strip of color here going down your sleeve as well. So this has got all sorts of design ideas. So you can either do the facing and turn it to the inside, or you can do the facing and turn it to the outside. So let me just flip around here. You'll notice that the the little peaks between the scallops are already attached, and basically all I did to attach them was sew little, you can see here, these are little bar tacks on my sewing machine. So that's how I connected them. Now we could put a button there, you know, in between all these intersections, or you can just leave it as a bar tack. And then when I get up to the top of the, you know, I get to the top here where the bicep is, I'm gonna bar tack this shut. And I don't know, I might put one bar tack in the middle. I don't think I want this part to spread, but we're gonna have to see as we go along. So what I want to start by doing is I want to show you how to sew this sleeve, and just to you know, minimize the time, I'm doing a repetitive step. I've already sewn 3 of the sides, so this one's completely sewn. Let me just move that over. All right, and now let me show you this. I've got this one. I haven't done anything to it except I sewed it. Now here is one of the things that I want to explain. You obviously want to come accurately to the point, you know, where these peaks are. You want that to be accurate. And the first thing I tried on one side was drawing little guidelines where the seam allowance was to find where it intersected. And I followed that little guideline when I got into these, you know, outer corners. That worked okay. But then I realized to save a step, all I have to do is sew. So as I start sewing, I sew from here, and then I sew right off the edge over here, and then start off the edge over here and sew around until I sew off the edge over here. And what that does is it gives me accurate points for, you know, all of these little intersections of where we're going to put the sleeve together. So this one's sewn. Okay, and I'm going to show you how to trim it and turn it in a minute. But let's get the last half sewn. So the way you sew this is your sleeve is going to be right side up. And this is that Tencel fabric from LA Finch Fabric, and it's a little bit lighter on the right side. So I'm going to put my facing right sides together with the sleeve like this. Okay, and what I'm going to do here is I am going to just put a wonder clip, you know, every few inches. So I'll put one in the center here, and then I'll put one on the actual point, you know, and I'm making sure they stay matched up. You know what could be really pretty on here is if you used a stretch lace as your facing and then turned it to the right, you know, put it wrong side together, turned it to the right side. You could have a strip of lace running down your sleeve. That could be kind of pretty. I'm really excited about all these different options that I'm thinking of for the sleeve. All right, so I'm going to just pin this all together like this. So I've got to pin every few inches, every couple of inches, making sure my edges are matched up. And now we're going to go to the sewing machine. All right, let me get this will be a little bit better of an angle here. Okay, I want to make sure it's nice and, put this here so I can see that it's nice and sharp. There we go. All right. All right, so I'm going to stick this. Hi, Francine. Welcome. So I'm going to start here, and basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a little piece of paper to start so I don't stick it in. And I have to go to mode 1, and I'm going to move my needle all the way over to the right, and that's going to give me a 1/4 inch seam allowance on here. Good morning, Jerry. Welcome. I'm showing you guys how to sew the statement sleeve first. Okay, and then I will I'll review it for you once I get this done. But basically, I'm using the side of my presser foot as a guide. Let me just move me over here. All right, and maybe that's, let me just, whoo, sorry. I'm just gonna fix the lighting here, hold on. There, I think that's better. Thank you. Jerry hopes we're all well and happy. I hope everybody's well and happy too. I hope everybody's safe. Ugh, there's so much yucky going on. Okay. All right, so I'm going to start sewing here. I have the Seriflex thread in my needle and in my bobbin, and that's going to give me the little bit of stretch I need to keep the seam from popping. Now, keep in mind, this is a decorative seam. It's really not going to get stressed that much, so I'm not super worried about it. So I'm just going to sew. Oops, I got to put my feed dogs back up. Now, when I get to my first area of detail, like I said, I'm just going to stay on the edge and I'm going to sew right off, like that. So see how that looks? Then when I start, I'm going to start on the edge over here, lining the edge of the presser foot up with this curved area. And I'm just going to keep the curved edge right on the edge of my presser foot. And again, I'm going to sew right off the end. And then I'm going to look and see what I did. All right, over here I had a little bit of a rough start, so I'm just going to do that again. I want to make sure it's an accurate 1/4 inch. There. So see how I just fixed it there? And I don't have to take out my first row because it's within the seam allowance. So you just want to be careful and make sure you're sewing an accurate 1/4 inch all the way down the sleeve. And like I said, if you stop and start on the edge, that'll help contribute to some nice points. All right. Now, I would check your, do some testing on a scrap before you work on your cutout sleeve, just to make sure you don't need any, to make sure the fabric doesn't need to be stabilized. If you're working with something that's really thin, you could also line your edges with a fusible stay tape or a fusible knit tape to help make a nice shape here. This particular fabric is pretty thin, but it's also holding its shape nicely. I think I did that same thing. I think I'm going to have to go back and fix the seam. See how it dipped in a little bit there? So I'm just going to do it again. Fill that in a little bit. Okay. So don't be afraid to go back and fix it if you need to. Okay. And then the last thing down here by the wrist, I'm just going to sew this last little straight edge. Okay. All right, so now that that's all sewn, let me show you how we're going to get these turned to the right side. See how I just pulled that paper off? It's not even showing there. I'm going to get my iron queued up and ready. All right, so what I'm going to do here is I have 2 halves to this sleeve. So I've got 1, 2. Okay, there's what the sleeve looks like. Let me make it bigger. Okay, now what I'm going to do here is, see how there is these little diamonds in the corners? I'm literally just going to take my scissors, and my big scissors. Where's my scissors? Seriously.
You lost the comically large scissors.
Yeah, no, but they're here somewhere. It's using them. You see? All right, that's ridiculous.
Here are other scissors. Over here.
Found them. Sorry. Honestly, these scissors are so big, I don't know how I could lose them. All right, so what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to clip just inside the stitching to get to that point like this. So see how that looks? I'm going to get really close. Without stitching, you know, through, you don't want to stitch through the stitching, but I'm just going to get really close here. Okay, so see how that looks? See, this is why over here where I screwed up and I had to sew in deeper, you can see that you don't need to take the stitching out because this stitching here is fine there. Okay, so I'm going to leave that, but in this particular case you can see I clipped my stitching here, so I have to go back and fix that. But before I do that, let me just clip these other ones. Just going to carefully clip them. This. All right, just one more here. All right, so those are all nice and clipped. So before I go any farther here, if you happen to clip your stitching like I did, use a piece of paper to support the edge, and then you can just sort of re-sew that. And I'm going to walk it by hand just to catch it again. And then I'm going to sort of just fix that point. And notice I'm just hand walking it. So you can see I fixed my stitching. All right, so now what I'm going to do here is I am going to just turn it to the inside, and I'm just going to finger press. Oh, see, look at, I did screw that up. It's still, no, there's a little bit of a hole there. So this is what happens if you cut into deep. So I'm going to have to, I don't know, I'll play with that, but that made a little hole, so we'll see what happens here. But if you don't clip too deep, all you do is put your finger through, you know, all these little sections, and you'll be surprised how nicely it lays. So I'm just going to poke all the points and just lay it flat for you to see without ironing it. And obviously this is a little fussy because you're trying to create a shaped edge. But you can see already the shape of it is starting to look really nice, and I didn't even press it yet. So please let me know if you have questions about that, but that's how you deal with each side. And then going to get my little pressing surface here, and I'm going to turn it upside down, and I'm going to press it. Now, if your fabric is the kind of fabric that doesn't like to be touched by the iron, you know, definitely do a sample first. This fabric was pretty agreeable to being pressed, so I'm not going to rub, I'm just going to pat. Okay, but you can see how nicely the shape comes along without understitching if you clip nice. So this is how you prep the sleeve. Now, I know some of you might not be in love with doing a cropped layering tee, so it does not offend me if that's not really, you know, the kind of style top you want. Honestly, I'm mostly doing this version of the tee because I promised my social media manager that I would help her with this, and then I forgot about it, so I thought it'd be a fun project. But I am going to try to think of things that we can wear over it. You know, so like if you're cold in the winter and you just need a little extra insulation, you know, this would be a good way to layer up without having bulk around your belly and your hips, because it'll stop at your midriff. So I'm kind of excited to try it, actually. But in any case, there's one side done. Okay, and you can see that it made the shape really kind of cool and nice and neat very easily. All right, Jerry is asking, could I draw the scallops and sew along the line and then trim away the excess? You can, except this is half of a sleeve, so you could trace it on and then cut it away later. I do think it's easier. The pattern piece, here's the facing pattern piece we made last week, and here's the sleeve. Okay, because remember, it's a two-piece sleeve. Hi, Brenda. Thank you for joining me. Welcome. We are making a cropped layering tee, meaning I'm cropping it midriff, so if you want to wear it over something else, it won't be bulky around your tummy and full hip. And then we are making a statement sleeve. So what I'm doing is I'm showing how to sew together this sleeve. And we drafted it last week. So you can see it's a two-piece sleeve here. Okay. So I think having the scallops together might be easier. Oh, Jerry says she loves seeing the crop tees on my 21-year-old granddaughter. Yes, you can, if you have a teenager or, you know, someone who likes a cropped top, you could wear it as a cropped top. I personally am trying to figure out ways to wear it as a layer underneath something. Or the other thing too is, if I made this out of a sweater knit and I made it a little bit looser, I could then wear it over a longer dress shirt and the shirt would stick out the bottom. So there's all different ways that you can make this work. So I just don't want anyone to feel like they have to make a style they're never going to wear. So like, let's say you're watching me and you like this sleeve, you can make the sleeve and put it on a regular tee too. So I figure there's a little something for everybody here. So Brenda, if you missed parts 1 and 2 of this is the part 3 of the pattern hack attack, where I showed how to make all the pieces. So if you go onto my channel and look for my Fab Fit Fridays, the last 2 are parts 1 and 2 of this series. This is the third part. All right, so I've got one pressed. Now let me just press the other one. Okay, so basically, again, I'm just going to use my finger and poke out all the points. And kind of like I'm getting it set up or finger pressed before I ever go to the iron here. I want to get it to lay in the shape that I want before I start to bring that iron in. So if I just use a pencil here. Give it a little point. Now, if your points aren't coming out nicely, then chances are you need to clip a little bit closer to your stitching. Okay, so if your points are not fabulous, definitely definitely turn it right back to the wrong side and, stitch it a little, trim it a little bit closer. Okay, so again, I'm going to press this, and I'm pressing from the wrong side, just in case. This one is being a little bit, looking for one of my little point. This one needs a little bit of love in here. The other thing too, when you're poking your points out, don't poke too hard because you can rip through the stitching. Okay, so here's our last area that needs to be pressed. I'm trying not to rub back and forth. I'm trying to do more of a patting, pat down motion like this. You can easily create more wrinkles in your knit by rubbing it because knits stretch. All right, so let's look and see what we have here. I'm just going to give it a nice press from the right side here, just to get out all the wrinkles. All right, so now here's how I'm going to put together the two pieces. Okay, I am going to take both of my pieces and I'm going to lay them side by side. Move this out of the way. Okay. All right, so what I'm going to do here is I am going to lay my two halves of my sleeve right next to each other, like this. And I'm going to use one of my favorite sewing tools, Scotch tape, and I'm actually going to tape together the points where I'm going to do those bar tacks. So you can see, I'm going to zoom in here. So what I'm doing is I'm lining up those 2 points. Just make it a little bit sharper here. Okay, and I'm just going to put a piece of Scotch tape over it, and that's going to do 2 things for me. That's going to hold the left and right side together so I can do my bar tack, but it's also going to support the knit because I'm stitching on something that's not stretchy. All right, so let me just get this one. Oops. This tape does not need to be that long. Little pieces will work. Okay, so there's another one. And then finally, let me just get this one. Okay. All right, so you can see now I have all of those edges taped together. And I think I didn't do this for the first one, but I think what I want to do is put my tape up here too, because I know I'm going to at least want to put a bar tack up here at the top. Okay, and I also think I want to put one down here. Actually, I'm not going to tack the bottom because I'm going to show you how to finish that off before we do anything else later. So I'm not going to do one there. But basically now I'm going to bring my sewing machine back, and I'm going to go to mode 2 and stitch 32, which is my bar tack. I'm going to put my feed dogs down, and basically all I'm going to do here is I am just going to tack through both the layers. Okay. And that's going to hold my sleeve together. Now remember, you can always put a button or something above this, you know, on this bar tack later to be more embellished if you want. Oops. All right, let me get the last two. I'm pressing the foot control with my hand instead of putting it on the floor, in case anyone's noticing that I'm doing that. Alright, so this is the last one on the sleeve. Okay. Alright. Alright, so now we have a decision to make. I've sewed, oops, just cut this. I'm going to cut my tails all really close. And after I cut my tails, I'm going to take off my tape here. The tape comes off really easily. That's why I like using Scotch tape for stuff like this. Alright, so now the last thing we have to decide is how we're going to finish the facing. And I think what I'm going to do here is, because see what we've got here is, you can see we've got this stitching, we've got this fabric here. So our choices are, from the right side, we can sew, you know, close to the edge and hold it down there, or we can sew close to the openings and then trim away. So those are our choices for finishing, and I kind of think, just look here, I think what I'm going to do, let's try on a sample. I'm just going to go back to my regular straight stitch, and I just want to see what that's going to look like on a double layer of this fabric, because that's what we'll be sewing. So let me just see how that's going to look. Oh, definitely, if you don't look up. Alright, so see, if I have just this skinny, you know, just this thread, I think that's going to be okay. And you can see, look how nicely that the Seriflex thread stretches. Okay, that works out really nice. So I think that's how we're going to just finish it here. So here's what we're going to do. I am going to lay this flat. I'm going to get the facings to lay flat here. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my regular pins, and I am going to draw I'm going to draw a guideline that is, I'm going to go a 1/2 inch from the edges of my, those scalloped openings, and I'm going to draw myself a line here. I'm going to make sure it's 1 inch from the folded edge up at the top here. So like from here to here, it's going to be 1 inch. So it's a 1/2 inch from the outside edges. This one's a little bit smaller, but, and then it's going to be an inch here. I'm just going to make this guideline for myself. All right, and I'm going to draw the same thing on the other side. So 1 inch up here, you know, then a 1/2 inch here. Now the other thing is you could make a scallop shaped top stitching if you wanted to. I'm just going to do simple here. All right. Okay, so I've got my line that I'm going to sew on. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just pin it so that the facing is laying nice and flat. Just every now and then. And I'm pinning perpendicular to the direction in which I'm sewing. I think that will help hold it. All right, so I think I'm going to just do both of these, because after we sew this detail, I'm going to be switching to the serger. Hi Nadia, welcome. Oh, Brenda says she's going to outline the scallops and trim, and that will finish them nicely. I do agree that can be a good way to do it. So if you want to try that, try it. You know, and then of course, if you want to share what you're doing and share your, you know, your take on what we're working on, please feel free to join my J Stern Designs Fit Sew Embroider Facebook group, because then you can post your own pictures in there and share, you know, and inspire our group with your version of what I'm doing. All right, so I've got this pinned. I'm just going to prep the second one just so everything, you know, I get the sleeves done, because after the sleeves are done, we're going to switch to the serger. Hi Jerry. Jerry wants to know the fiber content. Okay, if you head over to LA Finch Fabric, LA Finch like the bird fabric, they have some really nice Litacell Tencel fabric. So it's a version of a rayon, and it's really nice to work with. It's really comfortable to wear. I've already made a top out of it. You know, it does wrinkle though. That's the one thing. You can see my wrinkles here. But again, I'm just going to draw my guidelines here. 1 inch away from the seam at the shoulder, and then a 1/2 inch. It works out to be like a 1/2 inch next to these scallops. Okay. All right, and then actually before we sew these facings down, the other thing we have to do is finish the bottom end of the wrist edge of the facing. I'm going to sew it to make a neat bottom edge. All right, so I've got my guidelines. Okay, then I'm just going to put some pins in here. You know, I'm really just pinning every 4 inches or so just to make sure everything's laying together nicely. And then I'm going to show you what we're going to do down at the bottom in a minute here. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is actually at the bottom of the hem, I'm going to use my ruler and my rotary cutter, and I'm just going to even up the bottom ends of these facings like that. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm going to turn them to the right side like this. And we're going to sew that first, because that will then contribute to the hem of the sleeve. So I'm turning these facings towards the front. Okay, so we'll do that first, and then we'll, okay, so see, all I did was turn the facings back around to the front. Hi Kadir, welcome. I hope I'm pronouncing your name properly. Welcome, welcome. All right, let me just take these two here, and let me just turn these facings. This is at the wrist edge. I'm just turning them so they're even with the right side. And I will say one thing about doing this is if you don't understitch, you can get it to lay a lot flatter than if you understitch, because there's nothing stopping it from flipping back to the right side here. All right, so let's go to the sewing machine. These are the last 2 steps we're going to be on the sewing machine, then we're going to go to the serger. Okay, so I'm going to turn the hem of the wrist edge up, you know, under to finish it. So the first step here is I'm literally just going to sew a 1/2 inch, you know, I'll turn it up a 1/2 inch. So I'm going to sew a 1/2 inch from the edge. Like this. So it looks like that. Oops. So see how I just sewed right across like that? I'm going to do that on all 4 pieces. This one I have to start here. Okay, and then let me do the other sleeve. This one last side here. All right, this is the tough one. This is the one I understitched, you know, and I can see it's not laying as nicely because of the way I understitched, so I'm going to do the best I can on this one. Okay. All right. So before we sew the facing, what I want to show you here is, let me just make it sharp, make it maybe a little bit bigger here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, I am going to, we want to turn it to the right side like this so it's finished. But in order to do that, we have to clip, trim. So basically what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to trim right off the end, but I'm not going to trim all the way. I'm going to leave a little bit on the end there. I'll show you why. So it makes like a little L like that. So then when we turn it, like this, I can then, oh, we can cut this little piece off right here. What happens is I can turn this under and see, it'll make a nice finish like this. The stitching came undone here. I'm just going to put a wonder clip to hold that. But you can see that will make a nice finish for the sleeve. All right. Let me just get this ready here. Just going to clip it right there for now. All right, let me just turn the last 3 and then we will start finishing the thing. So again, I'm just going to clip almost to it, but not all the way, because I don't want to clip the so let's look at this here. So you can see this is going to make a nice, show you this way. So see, when it's finished like this, see, that will be a nice finish down here. And I may need to poke it with my point turner here, just to make sure they're nice. Because then these, oh, you know what? This might even be kind of cool if we don't tack that and leave it like a little vent on the sleeve. I'm going to leave that loose for now. That might be kind of cool. I am going to put 2 pins here. And I am going to play with that and make that a little bit. All right, I'm not getting a good point. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to clip this corner. You want to get a nice point here. Oh, that's better. Now, I think that's going to be kind of cool. Wait a minute, let me just make a little. Oh, see, I did over here. It is small. That's why that one looks better. All right. All right. So this is going to be, I almost think leaving a little vent there will be kind of cool. That'll be like right here on your wrist. All right, so that one's good. I'm just going to put 2 more pins here. Let me just finish those other 2. All right, let me just do this one and then we'll go back to the machine and finish. So I'm going to trim. Not only am I trimming here, but I'm also going to trim the corner a little bit. So right here. So I get a nice corner. So let's turn these. You know, I made a little hole there. You got to be careful that you don't clip too close to the stitching. Okay. I'll fix it though. All right, so I've got my see, I really think that this is going to be kind of a neat bottom edge here. So let me just put 2 more pins in and then we're going to finish this. I'm going to stitch on my lines. Okay. All right, so let's go back to the sewing machine. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is all I'm doing at this point now is just stitching on that line I drew to hold down my facing. I'm going to put my foot control on the floor for this. All right, so I'm just going to stitch straight down. I'm going to take my pins out as I come to them. Now, I do want to tell you I'm using a machine that has a built-in walking foot, and it helps feed the top layer of fabric at the same rate of speed as the feed dogs is pulling the bottom layer. I think I am going to stop a ½ inch from the bottom so I can finish the hem later. So I'm going to leave it, stop right there, and then I can sew across this way, you know, once it's finished. I'm going to leave it right like that. All right, so that's how that looks. Now I'm going to do the other side. Okay, we're almost to the bottom of this one. And again, I'm going to stop about a ½ inch. Okay. All right, so let me just do the other one and then we'll look at them. Hi, Mary. Welcome. Oh, don't apologize. I'm grateful that you come. I'm sewing the final step of the statement sleeve for this crop layered tee that we're working on. So basically now I'm just top stitching the facing in place. I elected to do a straight line of top stitching instead of following the shape of the scallop. But I really love to see what you guys come up with. All right, so again, I'm going to stop a ½ inch before I get to the bottom. All right, one side left. You could also finish the facing before you actually tack them together too. Okay, I'm going to stop a ½ inch. All right, let's look at what we have here. Okay. All right, so you can see that I just chose that simple straight line of stitching to hold the facing. Now if we look at it from this side, you know, I can trim close to the edge now to finish that. But I do think I like having this like little vent open at the, you know, that'll be like at the, you know, in the middle of your arm. That's kind of cool. All right, so here's what we're gonna do. It's 2 o'clock. I think what I want to do here is I'm gonna get the serger and we'll serge the underarm seams together, and I think we can put together this top in another half an hour. So I think I'm just going to keep going because I want to start a new topic next week. Let's see here. Mary says my son is coming for a visit and I need to make some dough for bagels for his breakfast. All right, I just want everybody to know, just between us friends, Mary is an amazing baker. She wows me at all the holidays, and I love seeing all the things that she makes from scratch. It's okay, Mary. I'm sure your bagels are going to be delicious. Okay. All right, so let me just, I added this tack up at the top. Let me just do that to the other one. Here. So up here, I'm going to take a piece of Scotch tape, and I'm just going to tape together the ends, and then I'm going to go back to my mode 2 stitch 32, put my feed dogs down, and I'm just going to bar tack the cap of the sleeve together here. Okay. Oh, that's brilliant. I didn't catch. Hold on. I got all excited. I didn't center it. Let me do it again. Okay, that's held together now. All right, so now I'm going to get rid of my sewing machine. I'm going to bring my serger over. So just give me 1 second here. Okay. All right, so here's what we're going to do. I am going to quickly, my serger is set up for a 3 thread. I forgot to fix that before I came on, I'm sorry. All right, so I'm going to, let me just make this big so you can see what I'm doing here. All right, so, whoops. Let me just make that so you can see. All right, so basically I picked a sort of a melody of thread colors here. I have light gray for my left needle. I have beige for my right needle. I have 2 color blues for my loopers. Let me just give this a quick thread here. Oops. There we go. All right, so there's one. All right, let me just thread this. Oops. All right, my needles are done right there. Then I'm just going to get my 2 loopers. This is the one nice thing about the Ovation. It's very easy to thread. I can literally thread it in a minute. All right, so let me just get my lower looper through the air threader. All right, there's my lower looper. And then my upper looper. Okay, so my loopers are done. And I'm just gonna put my needle back in the left, my right needle back in. All right, so all I have left to do is finish threading these. Let me just make this a little bit bigger so you can see what I'm doing. All right, so basically I am just going to thread my needles here. There's one needle. I'm so sorry that I didn't have this set up before I came on here. I'm sorry. I know this is not riveting tutorial, threading needles. All right. Okay. Okay, so now I've got my needles threaded, and of course, the first thing I'm going to do is just run a sample of fabric through my machine to make sure that my differential feed is good. I'm going to start with my differential feed at N because I want to see what it's going to do. All right, I'm going to use this. Oh, Diane says if I put a strip of lace under the scallop cutout area and the facing would appear to have less wavy, uneven look to the top side of the right side of the top stitching. All right, so if I steamed that, Diane, it would smooth out. I'll show you in a minute. Let me just test my differential feed here. All right, so my differential feed is set at N, and you can see that that's laying nice and flat. I'm sewing the vertical direction or the vertical grain line because when I cut the sleeves out, that's the direction of not only the underarm seam but also my side seams. So I don't need to adjust my differential feed for this. So what I'm going to do here is I am just going to put my right sides together and I'm going to sew my underarm seams like this, starting up at the top, and I'm just going to match it as I go. You know, and then when I'm at the bottom, I'm just going to make sure my underarm seams are matching there. Okay, so here is my my serge seam. Now you can see I didn't have any periwinkle blue thread, but you can see that all these colors just blend in really nicely. All right, this is a tiny little sleeve because remember I'm working with the smallest size, but I just want to show you if I stick my arm in there, how cute that is. That's as high as I can get it because I'm working with the smallest size, but I think that's kind of cute. I think also if you, I think who was it that said Brenda's gonna outline or do her top stitching along the edge, and I think if you do that, it'll also be less wavy because you'll be going through 3 layers of fabric. If you go through the facing, the actually that's I'm sorry, 4 layers of fabric, that probably would look less wavy too. I just had it in my head I wanted to try a straight line, but sewing near the edge might be another good option. Alright, so I'm just going to sew this. Like this. And I'm just matching up my whole entire sleeve, see? Alright, so our sleeves are now sewn. Let me just show you. Alright, so let me just show you this. Alright, it's hard to see because it's obviously folding on top of itself, but I think that's kind of a cool sleeve. The next step is I am going to get my fronts and backs together here, and I'm going to put them right sides together. Now if you want to put some stay tape there, probably for this that's going to be a good idea. Hold on. Let's be double-sided. Okay, so I've got this knit stay tape. I really like the Sokeezy stay tape, and I'm just going to show you quickly how to use it. So you're only going to be putting this on the wrong side of the back shoulder seam. So here's my back, okay? And when you open this stay tape, it's I haven't used this white, so this is my first time using it. As you unroll it, the glue is on the face down side, so I'm just going to put it right like that. I'm going to cut a piece off like this. I'm also going to put a piece over here. Now, depending on the knit you're working with, you could use this kind of stay tape to edge your scalloped edge to make that come out more crisp as well. You know, so if you're working with a knit that isn't as stable. All right, then I'm going to just give this a little pat. I'm not going to rub, I'm just going to pat it. Like this, just to... Okay. All right, so now that I've got that on there like that, I'm going to put it right side face up. This is my back. And I'm going to put right sides together here. And I'm going to sew one shoulder seam. I'm going to try something different today. What if I sewed one shoulder seam, then we're going to sew... No, I'm going to do two. I was going to sew one shoulder seam and then sew the mock turtleneck on, and then sew the second shoulder seam and the mock turtleneck together, but I'm not doing that. I changed my mind. All right, so let's just put this right sides together. And I'm literally just going to stitch my shoulders together. You can see I've got my back shoulder seam face up. like that. Let me do my other one. Oh, Nadia says cute. Thank you, Nadia. I'm assuming you're I'm assuming you mean the sleeve, not me. All right. Okay, so let me just get this one now. All right, then I'm going to sew my short side seam. So I'm just going to go from the top to the bottom. Remember, because this is cropped, my side seams are very short. So I'm just going to sew these little side seams. All right, let me do this one. Okay. All right, so this is all done. Let's look and see what we have here. We have our little cropped tee. This is what it looks like right now. Now remember, the neckline is really small because we drafted it so it would sit at the base of your neck with the mock turtleneck. So now what I'm going to do, here's my mock turtleneck. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to sew this into a circle. So let's do that next. Oh, Nadia would like to know, why do we use stay tape on the shoulder and not the side seams? Okay, that's a very good question, Nadia. The reason why we want to put it on the shoulder is to give the shoulder support, so when the sleeve is on and it's, you know, pulling, like when you bend your arm, the sleeve is going to stretch, and it's going to stretch because of your elbow. That will keep the shoulder in shape. Also, if you're making something like a maxi dress or something out of heavy fabric, it's a good idea to support the shoulder seams so it can support the weight of the garment on your shoulders. The side seams don't need that kind of support. They're just going to stretch, you know, and you want them to be able to stretch vertically or, you know, cross grain, however the fabric stretches. So that stay tape is really designed to support the shoulder. But like I said, sometimes if you're working with something that's a really fine knit, you can put stay tape on all the edges to support them and to hold, you know, help support the stitching. But as a rule, for most, you know, most knits, I really just do the shoulder seams. All right, so let me just sew this into a circle here. This is the mock turtleneck. All right, so what I'm going to do here is I am going to fold this in half like this, and I'm going to find the quarters of my mock turtleneck. Now, if anybody is watching this and they haven't been following along, there were two options to make for this top, and the other one is a cowl neck. So next week I'll show you how to sew the cowl neck. And you know what else I think we'll do is next week I'll show you how to use your cover hem to hem the bottom edge of the sleeve and the, you know, the bottom edge of the actual, you know, the hem of the top as well. So next week we're going to be working on cover hem and how to do a how to sew together the cowl neck. All right, so here's the seam, here's halfway. So I'm going to put a clip. Then I'm going to put those two clips together like this to find the other quarters. Okay, so I've got my clips together, right? So I can put a clip here and a clip over here. All right, so those are the quarters of my mock turtleneck. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to find the quarters of my neckline, and we're going to start at this shoulder right here. So this is going to be where we're starting. So what I'm going to do to find the halfway point compared to this clip is I'm going to walk the front and back neckline together. So see, I'm just bringing them up together. So I'm taking my front and back edges and I'm matching them like this. And I'm going to go over to this other side, and you can see it's going to be just in front of the side seam because the front neckline is a little bit bigger than the back neckline. So our halfway point is right here. Let me lay that out for you to see. Okay, so you can see we've got right on the shoulder, and then we've got a little bit in front of the shoulder seam here. Let me just clip all these extra threads I don't need. Okay, so then I'm going to put these clips together, and I'm going to find the halfway point between the clips to get my quarters. So one is going to go right here. And one is going to go right here. And this is exactly the same way I find my quarters, so I can put on, if I'm finishing it with a neckband, you know, like a knit strip, if I wasn't putting a collar on it. Okay, so now I've got my 4 quarters are now marked. Okay, so I'm going to take my mock turtleneck, and I think because this is so narrow, I'm going to turn the shirt inside out so I can put, I'm going to match the seam in the collar with the seam on the shoulder here. That's going to be the first thing. So my seam is going to match the side seam. So I'm matching that together, and I'll just clip all these layers together. Then I'm going to go to the next, see, I'm going to match the next set of clips, and they should be pretty close to one, because when I drafted this, we drafted it to fit. So you shouldn't really have to be easing anything in here. Okay, so I'm going to do the next one. Okay, and then we have the final one. I'm going to match that up. Okay, so now you can see we've got the mock turtleneck is inside, you know, pinned all around the neckline, right sides together. So now let's go to the serger and serge it on. And I'll start somewhere near the shoulder seam here. Like this. Okay. All right, so we're just going to sew around in the circle now. I'll take the clips out as I get to them, and I'm just going to make sure all my edges are, you know, matched up. we're down to the last quarter here. All right, so I'm going to cut my tail off. Then I'm going to put my knife down, overlap, lift my needles and my presser foot, push everything back, put the presser foot down, and chain off. All right, so let's take a look at this. Now the one thing is I can't try this on for you because it's tiny. I said I'm making this for my social media manager, but look how cute that is. A little mock turtleneck here. Okay. And look how nice the shoulder seam matches up with the seam in the mock turtleneck. All right. So now I'm just going to show you how to set in a sleeve. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to set one sleeve in, and then I'm probably going to do the other one off camera because you don't really need to see two sleeves. But then next week we'll finish this, and I don't think I've done cover hem with you guys in a long time, so we're going to do some things about cover hem. One thing I want to point out to you is see how when you do the tape on the shoulder, the reason why you put it on the back is so when your seams are pressed to the back, it covers it. Okay, so see, even though that's white and it really shows, once it's folded down, it'll be concealed underneath the shoulder seam. So the first thing is I'm going to take my top and I'm putting it inside out. Okay, so here's my armhole right here. Okay, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my sleeve and I'm going to stick it in to the armhole, and I'm going to line up the underarm seam with the side seam. That's the first step. So here's my side seam and underarm seam are going to match like this. So I'm just going to put a clip there. Let me just cut these off. Okay. So I'm just going to clip that together. Then I'm going to start working up the sleeve and armhole, you know, towards the front and then towards the back. So the sleeve is inside the armhole. I'm going to match it like this. Okay, so I've done like 3 inches this way. And that's approximately where your notches would be. So any extra ease or, you know, anything you have to ease in needs to be above the notches. So from notch to notch at the base of the sleeve and armhole, those are both 1 to 1. So again, I've got about 3 inches over here. Then I'm just gonna go up and continue to pin this together. Now the seam or where the two pieces of the sleeve go together, that's going to line up with the shoulder, because I basically cut the sleeve in half, and the sleeve for the T is almost the same front to back, so there really isn't a significant difference between the front and back armhole on this pattern. So I'm just going to make sure everything's laying nice and flat. I'm just going to put a couple more pins in there, and then we're just going to sew it in. Now obviously I want to make sure my shoulder seam is not going to twist. So see, I've got that like that, so it's laying flat. And on this sleeve, I'm going to be going in the direction, actually I'm going to be going against that direction. So because I want to make sure that does not flip, I'm going to use a piece of Wonder Tape, just a teeny little piece. and I'm going to make sure that the shoulder seam stays in the right direction because I'm going to glue it in place. So I'm going to put a piece of Wonder Tape there, like right on the end, peel the paper away, and then just stick it down so it's going in the right direction. Okay. All right, so now let's go back to the serger here. All right, so I'm just going to start somewhere near the underarm seam. That's where I always start. And I'm just going to sew the sleeve on. You always want to sew inside the circle when you're setting in a sleeve so you can see everything. I don't know if I care about that. I'm just going to push it. Okay. All right. Okay, so I'm just gonna, as I get to the top here, I want to make sure that I catch all of that in together. All right, so I'm coming down to my start point where I started setting in the sleeve over here. I'm going to put my knife down and overlap my stitching. Pick up my needles, slide it back, put it down. So you can see this makes a nice start-stop point when you do that, see? All right, let's take a look at this. Oh, see, I think this is going to be stinking cute. Look at this. This is the sleeve. I wasn't thinking when I when I wasn't making one my size, I realized, you know, after I got going on this that I wouldn't be able to try it. All right, so there's going to be a little bit of a split here along the bicep. I might tack that down. I don't know. I'm going to have Brittany try it on and see. But basically, I think that's really cool. Look at the little vent at the end. And then you have these openings down the length of the sleeve. Hey, I think that's going to be pretty cool. Yeah, so that's how that's looking. But I'm really pleased with the way that came out, if you can see it. See how the little tack I did shows right there. But it's all put together nicely. I've got my nice mock turtleneck. So it's actually like this. Okay. All right, so that's really what I'm going to do for today. All right, so next week I'm going to show you how to use your cover hem to hem this and to finish the little hem on the sleeves. Okay, so that's what we'll do next week. I'm going to get the cover hem out, and I'm really hoping I have time to sew one up in my size and sort of play around with what I want to do in terms of making it something that I can wear underneath something else. So I'm going to be making one for myself, and then I'm going to find ways to style it that's appropriate for a 54-year-old. Okay, so that's going to be my goal. But when I make mine next week, I'm going to show you the cover hem next week for hemming, And I'm also going to show you how to put together the cowl neck, or how to sew the cowl neck, which really is yeah, the cowl neck, really easy. But I'll put a cowl neck on mine. I'll have the sleeve and everything all sewn together, so all we have to do is do the cowl neck, and then I will show hem, cover hem on the serger next week. So that's what we'll do next week. If you have any questions about what's going on, or if you need help designing your sleeve, or if you need help designing how you're going to top stitch it, or any of those things, please, either post comments here or head over and join my group on Facebook. There's a link to that group underneath this video, and I can see you there, and you can post pictures there and show me what's going on. So if anybody's working on this, I would love to see what their version is. And I just want to take a minute and thank everybody for sewing along with me. And I'm really excited about our next project. I will reveal it next week, but it's an accessory. So we're going to be working on an accessory starting the week after next. So next week we'll wrap up the cropped layered tee. I'll show you the cowl neck, I'll show you the hem, and then I will also reveal our next project. I'm super excited about it. I saw it in Vogue, that's all I'm going to say. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Again, thank you for following along with me. If anybody's interested in learning how to use the hat hoop for the Brother PSR 100, or I think the baby lock is exactly the same, I'm going to be showing how to do that on Sunday. I have a quick start video to show you how to set up the hat hoop and get it going and get it designed to your machine. So that's what we'll be doing on Sunday if you're into embroidery. So have a lovely weekend. I'm going to get ready for some volleyball. I have 2 games to watch. I have tonight at 7 and I have tomorrow at 10 at Trinity College, so super excited about that. Go Warriors. But anyway, all right, you guys, have a great rest of your day. Happy weekend, and I will see you again very soon. Oh, thank you, Francine. Thank you, Janie, and again, thank you, everybody. Also, I just want to say, Diane Fetters, who's watching now, posted some really cool pictures of some things she's made from taking some of my classes. So if you're interested in seeing the tee or the tank or the skirt, she's got some beautiful pictures in our Facebook group that she shared with everybody. So make sure you head over there and check that out. Oh, hi, Patricia. Welcome. You're late. That's okay. Watch the replay. I showed how to sew together the little top with the little statement sleeve. With the, let me see. This doesn't fit me. That's why I'm being weird. All right, so it's got like a little, that's not working. Let me show you over here. Okay, so see how I've got this, I showed how to sew the, see, I think this is going to be really cute. See? So that's the detail in the sleeve. Yes, I am going to wear my hat, Mary. I actually made, I don't know where, it's downstairs. I can't run and get it quick, but I didn't design Eastern Volleyball, and I put the number 7 in the back because that's my daughter's number, so I will be wearing that. But in any case, I'm very excited because we didn't get to watch volleyball last year. But interestingly, you can only go to the game if you have proof of vaccination and you wear a mask, which I'm kind of happy about, so I feel confident going to it. But anyway, all right, ladies. I hope you enjoyed this. Please keep me posted if you need help, and I will see you next week. All right, so have a lovely rest of your day. Bye.